Everyone's tried every angle for a bar, and like 90% don't work. Sometimes things don't exist because the market doesn't want them, and other times they don't exist because it's an opportunity. There was really no clean label, low sugar plant protein bar. This is a principle I've applied many times since in many different areas, but basically I was like, okay, who's done this before? And let me just call them and ask them how they did it. As you get bigger and bigger, you have to sort of like mass marketize your messaging. And this is especially true for brick and mortar. You can be kind of esoteric and niche online because you're just gonna find a zillion people who are into that niche. You have more time and space to explain things. In brick and mortar, you just don't. You have to appeal to everyone.
You're spending real money to drive traffic to your site, but the truth is 98% of that traffic leaves without ever giving you an email. Meta knows who they are, but you don't unless you use Instant. Instant helps brands identify anonymous visitors so you can send more abandonment emails, build stronger retargeting audiences, and actually recover that lost revenue. Brands like Fate the Label saw a 4.5x boost in their abandonment flows. Masco increased Shopify revenue by over 15%. Third Love, Toys R Us, and the Oodie, these are all massive stores that use Instant to see an average ROI lift of 11.2x. They'll even guarantee you a 4x ROI or your money back. It only takes 15 minutes to set up and you'll start seeing results fast. If you're serious about getting more out of the traffic you're already paying for, now's the time to fix it. Get 50% off your first month at instant.one/DTC. That's instant.one/DTC. Will, welcome to the D2C podcast. I've been following you on Twitter for a while and your journey with IQBar. Why don't you give us your sort of hero's journey with IQBar and how it brought you to where you are today?
Yeah, long story, but I'll try and compress it. Basically, I didn't like my job. I was 26 at the time. I was in Boston. I'm now in Miami. But my first job out of college, I learned a ton, but pretty quickly realized that I was selling software to oil and gas companies. I didn't really love software and I didn't really love the oil and gas industry. And I had a very hard boss, although I now, in retrospect, very much appreciate that. But yeah, was unhappy and unpassionate professionally and got really into nutrition at the same time. This was like 2015, 2016. And just for personal reasons, I felt bad on a daily basis. And I realized that was all due to my high carb, low healthy fat, low protein diet. And so started consuming a paleo diet and felt way better and got really interested in the intersection of nutrition and cognition, mostly because I was just mentally crashing on a daily basis. But I had also studied psych and neuroscience in college and always loved the brain and why it breaks down, how to make it work better, etc. And then the last piece was I read a book called Mission in a Bottle by the founders of Honest Tea, and got really interested in food and beverage entrepreneurship. So all those things kind of combined into me thinking, okay, maybe I'll start a brain bar company.
What was in the book that really hit home for you?
Well, I really related to the guy. His name's Seth Goldman. He went to Harvard undergrad and was a government major. I went to Harvard undergrad, was a government major. He went into consulting right out of school and hated it. And I went into my own job and really didn't like it. So there are just all these parallels where it just really like resonated with me. And then it was just such an epic journey. There were so many ups and downs. And then he had that epic ending of the journey where he sold to Coca-Cola. And so it just like had all the makings of a great story. And also I wasn't a software engineer. I wasn't an engineer more broadly. So the thing I was going to make was always going to be something I could make with my hands, like in my kitchen. So there were those limitations as well. And I also just like physical products more in general. So I like making things and clear transfers of value. But yeah, and I actually got to meet Seth. I read the book, I emailed him, he answered right away. And he was like, hey, I'm giving a talk in New Hampshire. So I rented a car and drove up. I didn't have a car at the time. I rented a car and drove up to New Hampshire and had dinner with him. And it was super cool.
That's awesome. So what were your first steps in your kitchen making a bar that people were going to love?
Well, I truly did not know where to start. So, and this is a principle I've applied many times since in many different areas. But basically I was like, okay, who's done this before? And let me just call them and ask them how they did it. So I found a couple of people who had started a bar company in Boston and bought them coffee and asked them 100 questions. And, everything from what should our cost of goods be to our gross margin? Where can I make it? Do I make it in a commissary kitchen or a manufacturer? What should I use? WooCommerce or Shopify or BigCommerce? Everything. Incorporating, should I be a C Corp or an LLC? So and then, by the way, I did that with like 3 other entrepreneurs. So I kind of triangulated a roadmap. But yeah, still different people approach it different ways, product development and initial manufacturing of products like that. I took the path of trying to own it and gain the expertise myself. And so I would literally have samples of ingredients sent to my apartment and make prototypes in my apartment. Other people would go to a third party and have them develop it. So there's no one right answer. I think my way is better because you force yourself into understanding like all of the ins and outs and nuances of your product, and you can evaluate third parties better when you do delegate to them at a later date. And also we were trying to do something that frankly was very, very challenging. We were trying to make a ultra low sugar, high protein, good tasting, clean label bar, it's just very, very tough. And not many people have great experience. Third parties have great experience doing it. So we were trying to do something new. But yeah, it was thousands of iterations in my kitchen.
You kind of founded this around 2017. Is that about the timeline we're talking about?
Yeah, I was iterating on it in 2017. Then we launched a Kickstarter December 17 through Jan 18. That was when we sold our first units.
Super cool. And what was wrong with the protein bars or the protein industry at that time in your eyes?
Nothing was brain focused. So everything was like weight loss or building muscle or digestion. It was all body, body, body. And there's nothing that was brain focused. It didn't exist. And sometimes things don't exist because the market doesn't want them. And other times they don't exist because it's an opportunity. So beyond that, there was really no clean label, low sugar plant protein bar. Everything was still pretty high sugar at that time. And then, the things that were low sugar were super dirty label. It's like a Quest bar and that uses sucralose, which is an artificial sweetener, for example. So I wanted that personally. And I also thought many other people would want that. Plant protein was like booming at the time. It's since kind of come down a bit, but still there's so many people who want plant protein. And there were very few plant protein bars at the time, still are.
I was just talking with someone who was just at Expo West. I assume, were you at Expo West as well?
No, kind of contrarian move. We don't actually go to the big events, but yeah, everyone else does.
They were just saying how protein is in everything. Protein is protein drinks, protein chips, everything is protein these days. They were saying that they didn't. The person I was talking to was saying they didn't see a lot of innovation this year. There weren't a lot of aha moments or really big interesting things at the show. It was a lot of retreads.
Yeah, that's what I heard as well. Protein is a mega trend. It's funny because it's kind of been a trend forever. It's all protein is
cavemen, literally.
Yeah, and I think Peter Attia, if you're familiar with him, is a big proponent of. I think it's 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight per day. And there's all these talking heads that have come out in the last couple of years saying we need more protein, and specifically women need to consume more protein than they have been. So I think the female side is contributing massively to the protein boom. Guys had already consumed a lot of protein. But yeah, it's ramped up, which is great. We definitely benefit from that tailwind. But then, it is getting a little bit bubble-like. Why, should there be protein in your pasta sauce? No, probably not. I don't think the market wants that. But there are these form factors people expect to get protein from, shakes, bars, etc., where we're all going to see a nice tailwind from it.
Super cool. I actually just did a podcast with Back to Nature. And they're a cookie and cracker brand on the aisles, and they're just talking about their rebrand to move away from plant-based as a main feature. Because I guess it's maybe different in a protein bar where you might think that, it's good that it's plant-based. Whereas with crackers and cookies, you're not even thinking about animal proteins or animal, anything really. So they've taken that off the front of their box. Has plant been a big selling feature for you, it being plant-based?
Yeah, 100%. look at most protein bars, they're animal based. So if you do want plant protein, yeah, I mean, there's us and got like 2 other players. But yeah, I mean, there just are a lot of people who want plant protein. Some who are vegan, most actually who aren't, and they just want plant protein. Maybe whey protein upsets their stomach, whatever. It could be a variety of reasons, but it's been dominated by whey. And then even the plant-based options that existed were just, frankly, not very good. So, because plant protein is harder to work with. It's grittier. It often has a taste to it, whereas whey is like fairly tasteless. So it's just more challenging to work with. So even the products that existed were just not great.
So you went through your thousands of iterations. It's funny when you're talking about, there's 2 ways to approach it. One in your kitchen, one you outsource it. And it's funny that I come from the ad world, and I talk to so many brand founders who have the same sort of opinion about growth, where it's like so important to sort of like understand the growth levers in your business yourself before you're, for instance, go to an agency. But before we dive into that, what were your next steps after kind of getting the product to the point where you wanted to? What was your sort of go-to-market strategy in the beginning?
So a big piece was just starting with e-com, right? Traditionally, food and bev, you think of it as a brick and mortar item because I think it's like 93% of food and bev items are bought in store. So that is where the market is, but we found it to be so critical to start online because we just got so much feedback. And this is especially true for new products trying to do new things. So like a brain bar, that was a new thing. So do people even want it? And then if they do want it, what do they want from it? And we just got so much feedback. Make it, actually we didn't have protein in the product at first. And then people said, it would be nice if there was protein. And then you hear that 500 times. You're like, okay, can we incorporate protein and have these like brain nutrients? If yes, let's do it. And the answer is yes. So we did it. Hey, there's too much fiber. It upsets my stomach. The type of fiber upset, you just get so much feedback. And we iterated the product actually many times, as well as the packaging. And we actually, even as recently as Jan of last year, had a massive packaging refresh. So you're never quite done with the product or the packaging. But yeah, I mean, it's the whole thing of just like launch something, get it out into the market, get feedback, and then micro pivot 100 times until you achieve product market fit. So,
and were you doing this on Meta?
Yes, we had a Shopify site, and mostly we were driving traffic via Meta, and then standard blocking and tackling of email marketing and things like that, organic social as well. But then we also layered on a Amazon storefront, and Amazon actually started outpacing D2C like 4-1. Just because it's sort of category specific, like bars are just sort of a staple grocery item, and people buy staple grocery items on Amazon to a far greater extent than they go to each individual website and like place like 50 different orders. They'd rather just create a giant basket on Amazon. So that started outpacing it. And then also we got this tailwind from keto. This was in 2018, 2019, 2020, where there was just a giant boom, particularly on Amazon, of people searching for keto snacks. So the Amazon advertising mechanism was just search advertising, bidding on keywords. And then we later layered on DSP, like display advertising on Amazon as well.
Nice. I've talked to lots of different CPG founders, and the degree to which they're focused on profit in the beginning is always interesting for me. So I think I found a quote from yours that says, "Until it's profitable, it's a project, not a company." How did you think about profitability since the beginning? And did ChatGPT lie to me about that quote?
ChatGPT nailed it on that one.
Nice.
Well, so, I mean, of course you want to be profitable from day one, right? But that's just not a reality of consumer goods or really manufacturing anything. So, I mean, the game we're playing is volume. Like that is, if I were to give you one word of the game we're playing, it's a volume game. That is what it is. So your P&L just does not work until you've achieved volume in most consumer good categories. And the volume threshold that typically right sizes your P&L is somewhere in the 30 million in annual net sales range. Really, the question is just, how do I get to 30 million in sales? Because that's when you set yourself free. That's when you get enough volume where your gross margin expands enough to where you can be cash flow positive. Not like out of the woods, because even past that, even when you're EBITDA positive, you're still reinvesting everything back into bigger and bigger inventory runs, but at least you don't have to, ideally, raise more money. You're not hemorrhaging cash. That's the whole game. How do we get to that as quickly as possible? Because along the way, we're going to be hemorrhaging money. So if we're hemorrhaging money for 2 years or 3 years, that's a lot better than 6 or 7 years. And we were super capitally efficient, but we raised just under 10 million across the first 6 years. And then we flipped profitable last year, and then we're majorly profitable this year. But yeah, it took the first 5 years we lost over $1 million every year. But that's like super like low for a brand like ours. Usually brands are losing 10, 20, maybe even 30 million bucks. So I would say we were a good 5x more efficient than a peer company of ours. So, but it's not, that just is the game you're playing. No one really, I guess, short of like supplement companies, or if you're, it's perfume or something, like insanely high gross margin at the gate, like no one's profitable in year 1 or 2.
Where did your biggest efficiencies come from during those years? Was it your sort of your focus on iterative performance marketing that allowed you to like not have huge retail runs that you were losing money on, or where did your biggest efficiencies come from during those years?
COGS, really. So it's just like wildly different to produce a bar that costs you $1.20 versus a bar that costs you 50 cents. Like that's just an insane difference. So, and the only way to get it, your cost really, really streamlined is volume. Because then you can go back to all of your suppliers and your manufacturer and just keep whittling down. I mean, you can reformulate or pit suppliers against each other. There's other stuff, but really it was COGS. And then I would say we onboarded more net profitable accounts as well. So we then did get to brick and mortar and really in year 2 and in a major way in like years 4 and 5, Walmart, Costco, Sprouts, H-E-B, Publix, etc. And they are more net profitable than e-commerce because you're just shipping, pallets and pallets and pallets, and in many cases truckloads, right? So your logistics costs per bar, we look at everything on a per bar basis. So your logistics costs per bar are just like infinitesimal with, relative to e-commerce. And you're also paying $0 to acquire customers. So it's just a better proposition from a P&L standpoint. But you need that e-commerce piece to drive that flywheel. People need to find you there, then see you in Costco or Sam's Club or whatever, and vice versa, by the way. So people will see you in club, or in a Publix or Sprouts, and then they'll search you on Amazon and buy you on Amazon. So once the flywheel of online to offline kicks in, it's pretty epic because you just acquire customers for less in both areas.
And in the meantime, this category has really blown up. Like I go to the bar aisle in my grocery store every week and grab a handful. I think I'm eating Kind bars these days. But how much has the category evolved kind of since you started in 2017, 2018?
It's a good question. I believe the CAGR is like 7 or 8%. So it grows every year. I would say it's a super saturated category, but there's always people coming in and out, right? The failure rate is insanely high. And so it's a category where people try so many different types of functionality: caffeinated bars, nausea-related bars for pregnant women. Everyone's tried every angle for a bar, and like 90% don't work. So there's always sort of a reversion to the mean, but in general, there's like breakfast bars, snack bars, protein bars, and they're all massive. I would say like net, whereas the category shifted, it shifted towards lower sugar, higher protein, and I would say cleaner label net, although there are some notable counterexamples to cleaner label. Like there will always be a massive market for just like a dirty label, affordable, good tasting, high protein bar. I mean, Quest bar, right? Still massive. Still a dirty label, but I would say on balance, like across the whole category, things are getting cleaner label.
So the things you labeled there about the way things are going are the things you kind of started with. So good on you for, being a front runner in the trend.
Yeah, I mean, we started with it, but also micro pivoted into it. Like like I said, the product's never done. So we just looked at the market and looked at the market data and looked at customer feedback. And it's not like we, from day one, knew that was what should be the case. We used data to arrive at that place.
Are you going to be creating a creatine protein bar? Is there such a thing? Because speaking of trends, that seems like the one when it comes to, because that's what they're talking about with it helps your neural pathways, and it's the it product right now, I feel like.
Totally. No, because we don't really want to be a supplement company. So when you do that, you're kind of a supplement company. And also, do people want creatine from their bar? No, not really. It's really not that much of a pain point to add creatine powder to your smoothie or drink or whatever. So, and that would put off a lot of people too. They're like, well, I don't want creatine in my bar. So you want to, like, the game you're playing is give everyone like the table stakes things that no one would find offensive, right? No one's going to be pissed that there's protein in the product. No one's going to be pissed there's fiber in the product, etc. But now if you put like caffeine or creatine, well, now actually a big swath of consumers are going to be like, whoa, I don't want that. So generally you want to, like in this category, you don't want to create objections that large percentages of consumers will have.
When it comes to your packaging, you mentioned you just did a redesign recently. What has been your thought process with like why you've made design choices or why you've had to redo certain design choices? What are you trying to achieve?
I mean, it's really I would say three things. Trademark and like brand identity and brand look, call outs and call out hierarchy, and flavor appeal. So you're just always refining all three of those things. Or I guess you're not always refining your trademark or brand identity, but we did actually meaningfully evolve that in Jan of last year. For example, like random thing, our logo didn't have a box around it. And then we're like, hey, we need to segment this logo off from other elements, and we actually slightly tweaked our logo. Flavor appeal, we had illustrated flavor cues. If something was almond butter and chocolate chips, it would be like an illustrated almond butter and chocolate chips. And we shifted to photorealistic versions. And there's no like perfect answer, right? Olipop and Poppy have illustrated cherries or lemons or what have you. And, other drinks have real cherries or lemons on top. So there's no perfect answer. But we just found that people respond better to photorealistic flavor cues. And then the call-out hierarchy thing, we used to have keto in huge letters on our caddies because keto was huge and we were keto compliant. Then keto died and we looked at it and we're like, hey, we should probably remove this because similar to the creatine thing or caffeine thing, it's actually, like, it's great for the people who are keto, but the people who are keto, we're going to figure out we were keto and buy anyway, and it's off-putting for people who aren't keto. They're like, what is this, a diet bar? Like, so we shifted that call out set and call out hierarchy. And by the way, retailers, this is one benefit of working with retailers is you'll hear back from them. They're like, hey, we don't want the word keto on packaging because we've looked at the data and customers are moving away from that. Great. That's just another data point. But like more broadly, as you get bigger and bigger and bigger, you have to sort of like mass marketize your messaging. And this is especially true for brick and mortar. You can be kind of esoteric and niche online because you're just going to find a zillion people in pockets of America who are into that niche. And then also you have more time and space to explain things. In brick and mortar, you just don't. And you have to appeal to everyone. And so it's a real delicate balance and threading of a needle of how do I position our product to where I still get the sale from you if you just want a chocolate bar or you just want a plant protein bar, or maybe you're into the brain thing. Cool. But I can't be off-putting to the first guy who just wants a chocolate bar. So it's how do I appeal to all these people and allow people to like double click on certain things. So maybe when they turn it to the side, now that allows the people who care about the brain nutrients to double click on that, but it's not on the front. So it's not off-putting to the person who doesn't care about that. It's very delicate.
How has your shelf space because obviously there's a battle for the shelf, the shelves that are at eye height essentially and the most easily reachable. How has your sort of strategy, is that all just determined by the retailer essentially and you're kind of along for the ride? Or how has your shelf space evolved over the years?
Yeah, man, that's all dictated by the retailer. So they have what's called the POG, a planogram. So there's a planogram for every category. So there's a bar planogram, which is just like, and often they'll literally have like a kitted version of it in the HQ that then gets plussed out to the 1,000 locations, and they'll build it. It's like a Lego set, and they're like, let's shift this here. Okay, do we want to pair have a section that's all low sugar bars? Well, no, actually, because some of them are high protein, and so that one's actually more of a high protein bar than a low sugar bar, even though it fits both. It's a Lego set for that category manager, and they're creating what will move the most units possible, or what they think will move the most units possible. And they're always adjusting, always, because the market's always adjusting and they're always getting more data. And so there's like funny things that happen where, let's say Kind Bar was the brand that moved the most units out of any other brand in the set. You might think, cool, they'll put them at eye level because that's where the most units move. Well, no, actually, they'll put them on the bottom row or the top row because the people going in to buy those, they're going to buy it no matter what. Right. And then other brands that are maybe up and coming brands have less notoriety. They're actually at eye level, which is the best positioning because you're not going to lose any of those kind buyers. But now you're going to get people to try these new brands. Right. So it's actually there are certain things that are counterintuitive about it. But yeah, I mean, that's why category managers, I mean, they're super important positions. I mean, the way things are merchandised has a really real impact on sales.
How do you think about top of funnel? Like, I guess retail is probably your biggest distribution channel at this point.
It's roughly 50-50 actually.
Between D2C and retail. Yeah. That's super cool. But a line, do you consider Amazon D2C?
No, but it's 50-50 e-com relative to brick and mortar.
Yeah, that's amazing. And then and you mentioned a few things you do on Amazon with ads and the display network. Are there any other things that, like, how else do you think of awareness and consideration building in your category to bring more people into store?
I mean, we do top of the funnel stuff like the display ads and Amazon Fire TV, and we invested heavily in podcasts this year.
Oh, cool.
As a top of the funnel exercise. We haven't done TV. We've done a little bit of radio, but no, I mean like the big top of the funnel and PR, we're ramping up. But the big top of the funnel thing, the biggest would be podcasts and Amazon display and other Amazon top of the funnel stuff like Fire TV, streaming TV. But we did all like direct, like we didn't do any top of the funnel stuff really until like a year ago. It was all direct response.
Talk to me about your podcast strategy. I guess it's maybe early to get returns. I've heard podcasts can have a bit of a longer tail, but talk about your podcast strategy and how it's played out.
Man, my wife who's the CMO and runs our e-com business would give a much better answer to that. But yeah, I mean, like the high level is, so we have an agency that's really, really good and gets preferred rates. And by the way, this is part of a broader model. We have a super core hub team, 8 people, and then we have like 15 third parties around us. We have a D2C third party, we have an Amazon third party, we have a co-manufacturer, et cetera, et cetera. So one of those is a podcast agency, and they're very good. And so they are constantly sort of refining the universe of shows that they think will, do the best on and get the best return on ad spend on. And it's like not intuitive, which is kind of funny. Like true crime, we absolutely crush on, which is hilarious.
Makes sense.
I think it's just because it's all women and we skew a little bit female. But I didn't have that one on my bingo card. So yeah, I mean, honestly, it's like leaning on them heavily and then agreeing on what sort of ROASs we want to see. I mean, we have on every ad read we have a discount code that goes direct to our site. But yeah, I mean, our expectations on returns are much lower than our direct response channels.
And then Meta, like Meta's been an absolute roller coaster for all the years that you've been running this. How, I guess you guys use an external agency for that as well, but how's Meta working for you, I guess, in 2025?
Pretty good. I mean, I think our CAC is like $25, which is for us good. And I think our average order value is north of 50. So yeah, it's scalable and good. I think we have a ton of room to run. I mean, D2C is only 10% of our business. We're a super diversified business, but yeah, I mean, it's still a big. I mean, it's a 8-figure net revenue channel for us, but I think good.
Nice. You're pretty active on D2C Twitter. There's a lot of D2C Twitter bros out there. What do you get out of being a presence on D2C Twitter?
Oh man, I'm like, am I a big presence? I don't.
Well, you're good. You're a quality poster. You're not a shit poster. You're not doing it for shits and giggles. You're putting out quality, good information on a fairly regular cadence, I would say. ChatGPT agrees.
I would say, like, for one, I'm not a D2C person, so I'm a business person, and good businesses are not D2C. They're omnichannel, like in consumer goods. So
totally,
no one like. The goal of a consumer good brand is not to be D2C, it's to be omni-channel, especially if you want to be acquired. Really, no one is, with some exceptions, no one's trying to acquire brands that are D2C brands in 2025, and that's not going to change. They want to acquire brands that can be proven to sell in multiple channels. And it's not even just like, oh, it works D2C and Amazon and one retailer. It's like, no, it works in Target and Walmart and Costco and D2C and Amazon and Thrive Market, right? Like the bar has gotten way, way, way higher, and you have to be really solid from an omni-channel standpoint. And I think that's what a lot of people in D2C Twitter miss is like, hey, just so you know, like this is just one sales channel. And quite frankly, if you're selling, at least in food and bev, it's just like the starting point channel. So I think that's maybe a differentiator of myself and the company is we look at things way more holistically, and we look at how D2C feeds brick and mortar and vice versa. And so I'm not like nerding out on cost caps. You know, I actually don't
Shots
care.
Fired.
It's just a terrible use of my time, right?
Yes.
So it's not to say it's a bad use of other people's time. It's just like in an omni-channel, that's like one piece, and then there's like 20 other pieces that like all aggregate up to the business. And so I think people like go too narrow in their scope of obsession, and they lose the forest for the trees a little bit. I'm also just more interested in like broad insights. Like I get someone like really nerding out on one very specific thing. I mean, that's cool for that niche. But again, like, is that going to move the needle of my total business? No. So I don't know. I mean, the other thing too is like everything, like social media, people are just cosplaying, right? None of this shit actually matters. All that matters is your objective results under the hood of your business. And the reality is that's extremely contextual. And so someone saying, hey, this worked for me. Well, that's great. That's not necessarily going to work for me. And even if it did, it's still better that I test it myself, confirm that it works for me. Right? Like, and this is true across form factors. Like what works for bars is not going to work for almond milk. And what works for almond milk is not going to work for metal wallets. And what works for metal wallets is not going to work for party supplies, right? So these markets and the consumer bases behind them just operate so differently. And so if you don't operate under context, it's useless. So I don't know. I think like, if we're honest, we're just like cosplaying out there and having fun, and it's entertainment. It's not really like the actual implementable business knowledge is, I would say, slim to none.
I just was seeing someone getting hammered yesterday for posting their clients like 27.23 ROAS. And it's like ROAS specifically, like that could be on one campaign. That could be on like one little tiny aspect of your business. And so everything's framing on D2C Twitter. But I would call you out as someone who puts out valuable information, not a shit poster. So congrats on that.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, anytime. I've seen you talk a lot about Mars as a big company in the space. I love Warren Buffett's like commentary on like trying times where he says, what was the number one chocolate bar 100 years ago? It was a Mars bar. Like, what's the number one chocolate bar now? It's Mars. Like, so even though things are changing and are tumultuous, like there's still North Stars in the business. That's all a preface to say, where do you want to take this business? You've hit, it sounds like you've hit the economy of scale that you need to in order to start generating a profit. You're mentioning in the past couple of years, you've generated a lot more profit than the previous years. What's next for IQBar? Are you angling for a Mars acquisition down the line?
Sure. If Mars is listening.
If you're listening, Mars.
They know where to find me. Yeah, I mean, we are building the business to be exitable for sure. And what that means in 2025, which by the way is different than what I meant in 2021, let's say, or 2018, is you have to get to 100 plus million in net revenue. You have to be somewhere between 15% and 25% EBITDA positive. I mean, I guess more if that's possible. I've just never seen it in our category. So at least 15% EBITDA. And so I ideally you're like making like 125 million net rev and over 20 million in EBITDA. And to acquirers, that is an attractive asset because it's de-risked to a large degree. Clearly product market fit has been achieved and it's profitable. And oftentimes it will be incremental to their profit margin. But either way, it's default alive. And so that is the goal. If you want to be acquired by a strategic, maybe you don't. Maybe you want to just cash flow the thing. But assets like these are never really like cash flowable, especially if you want to keep growing. I mean, there's never a point where you're like, oh, cool, let me just pull 3 million out of this business. Like, no, you need that 3 million to go make more inventory. And we have a line of credit now. We luckily have not had to draw on it, but we've come very close. Again, we're like meaningfully profitable. It's just, you're always cash poor. You're always cash poor. So, I mean, the game we're playing, and I think most are, is how do you get to exit? And so you're just sort of a price taker on that because, strategics and banks are quite clear on what it takes to get acquired. And it's just like, okay, let's go do that. And I mean, this harkens back to what I was saying earlier about you got to be omnichannel. You got to crush it in every one of those channels that you're in. It is not enough to be great in D2C. You have to be great in Amazon too. And you have to be great in grocery. And you have to be great in the club channel. And you have to be great in the natural channel. Like that is the bar, which it's a very, very, very high bar. So, I mean, if you want to get rich, like this is probably the hardest single way to get rich in the entire economy, but it's fun.
What would you do? I'm just curious. As someone like you, a businessman, so focused on this biz, if you were to get Johnny Mars is listening to this podcast, I can tell he's going to come make you an offer. What would you like? Would you start another business pretty quick? Do you think? Or would you travel? Would you just read a lot of books? What would you do?
No. I mean, yes, I would read a lot of books, but that's not all I would do. Definitely start something new. I mean, humans need purpose. Most people find, well, not most, but I find purpose from work as well as family and whatnot. But like, you got to be busy during the day. You got to be spending 8 hours a day doing something, push some boulder forward. And I think the difference would be I wouldn't be as desperate. Like I was super desperate to get IQBar off the ground and make it work. And that was really powerful. I think desperation's really important the first time around, and you need that to grind everything out. Also, I had no capital, so I had to fundraise. And so I'd look at things where it's like, okay, I'm not desperate. I could really take my time. I could think deeply about things. I could take bigger swings, potentially. Swings that involve more capital, swings that necessitate me having the experience that I now have, but didn't have at the beginning of IQBar. It's just, you have a different like aperture of what's possible and frankly, more time to ruminate on stuff. So no, I'd definitely do something new.
A consumable? Would you stick in the? I was just talking with Isaac, who started a sword company.
Yeah.
And then he
I
started
know
his
Isaac.
candy company, and he was lamenting back in the day about a sword company. He's like, you're only buying so many swords, no matter what a weeb you are. You're only buying so many swords. But he was, happy to get into something consumable, and he appears to be crushing it. He appears to be loving it. Would you stay in the consumable category, do you think?
Maybe. I like habitual recurring things. And so the beauty of consumables is by definition, they are recurring. But even within consumables, right? Like crackers, I'm not like desperate to have crackers every day. Whereas coffee, like I actually am desperate to drink coffee every day. So coffee's a better business than crackers, just as what it is. So
it's a drug also, which helps.
Yeah. And that too. So I want it to be habitual and recurring. It doesn't necessarily have to be that via it being a consumable, but so maybe, but maybe not. But either way, yes, I like the recurring nature. I don't want to be selling one-off stuff. So no, I'm really interested in actually selling data and creating unique data sets. There's all these things I've learned because I buy them and they're really expensive. And I just know for a fact they're extremely high margin for the person on the other end of the trade. And I'm like, damn, you have a good business model. Data does not have a shelf life. It kind of does, but data doesn't expire and grow mold in the hot summer. Data doesn't need to be stored in a warehouse. Data can't fall off a truck, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm really interested in data businesses as it relates to consumer goods. Is it less relatable and frankly, like less sexy and less fun? Probably, but I'm willing to make some trade-offs to get out of the way of just heart-wrenching things that happen in consumables. Like it's just not. It's a young man's game. I mean, it's not for the faint of heart. Like shit just goes wrong with consumables.
Supply chain stuff like that. Like you're just constantly having to source so much protein.
Oh man, I mean, supply chain is. I mean, the tariff dynamic right now is insane.
That was gonna be my last question for you. We're new in this trade war. I'm in Canada. You're in the U.S. Are you getting dinged yet?
Oh yeah, everyone is. I mean, it's the dumbest thing ever. So no one wants it who's in consumer goods. The bottom line is we import a lot of stuff, and for a good reason. There are other people who are better at processing it or manufacturing it or growing it, and so to tariff that stuff, at least and by the way, we don't want in grocery inflation to go up. So it's like, it's dumb from every angle. But I mean, just think about, this isn't the first time, by the way, COVID, you couldn't get certain food inputs. You couldn't get packaging. You had wrappers that you shipped from Korea or whatever that are stuck on a train car in Nashville and you can't get it because there's a strike and some guy got COVID at the rail yard. Like, from 2018 to today has been so gnarly from just like black swan supply chain disruption events. I can't even tell you. But the latest one, tariffs, is very bad. I mean, it just is what it is. You can get creative, but I think we're all just hoping they go away.
Yeah. I think about it, it's like this. There's this idea that they're going to end up replacing taxes in some degree, but it's like now it's just additive. It's like everyone's paying their taxes, and now there's these tariffs on everything as well. It's like it's just bad news all around. I'll see if I can talk to our new prime minister. And for me, it's just in Canada, it's just so crazy to be re-engaging with the behemoth in a way, right? Like to go shot for shot with the US is not going to work out well for Canada in the long term, it feels like.
No, it isn't. I wish Trump wasn't taking the first shot, but yeah, it's like, I don't care how it resolves. I just hope it gets resolved. Like, it's just so silly. And the bottom line is no one wants groceries to go up. I mean, that was like why Trump got elected in the first place.
Eggs.
So it's like, why would you go against the thing that every American says they want, which is lower prices at the grocery store? Why would you do that? I don't know.
Well, we'll leave it there. Go to eatiqbar.com if you want to have a vegan, paleo-friendly, low-sugar, clean label, delicious bar, and follow Will Nitze on X because you're a good follow.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, man. Nice to meet you, and good luck on your journey. I hope Johnny Mars is listening.
I do too. Take care.
Thanks so much for listening to today's episode. If you're not a subscriber to our newsletter, you can do that right now at directtoconsumer.co. I'm Eric Dick, and this has been the D2C Podcast. We'll see you next time.